Yo, this is Saint Sergi, and you're now listening to Valley Views on 101.5 FM. Check it out.
Oh, yes, folks. So, once again, good morning, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending when and where you're listening to Valley Views. I am your host, Hector, here on Valley Views on KROJ 101.5 FM here in the San Fernando Valley. And today we're continuing on this lovely Thursday evening, April 28, 2022, running our Meet the Candidates 2022 series. And one of the things that, of course, that we want to do here on Valley Views on KROJ is with the candidate series, our goal is really to inform our public on the vision, plans, and platforms of the candidates and their potential impact on our communities. Valley Views and KROJ do not endorse any of the political candidates or campaigns. And with that said, we want to go ahead and introduce our candidate here for California Assembly District 40. We're talking to Pilar Schiavo. Pilar, first of all, good evening. How are you this lovely evening?
I'm wonderful. Happy to be here.
Yes, absolutely. We're thankful that you were able to make it here in the studio here with us, and we want to just really get started here. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that our audience really is aware of with all of our candidates that we interview is, why did you decide in 2022 to run for office, a state office here for the California Assembly?
Well, I'm a mom. I am a nurse advocate. I'm a small business owner, and I've been working on the front lines of so many issues that I think are important to folks in our community that I've been talking to around fighting for good jobs, for guaranteeing healthcare to everyone in California, and fighting for real solutions to homelessness and the housing crisis. And frankly, after working for 20 years on those issues on the front lines, I just wanted to get inside the Capitol and really be able to work on those issues and have my hands on the policy. So bring basically the inside work that needs to happen to really make change for our community, make change in people's lives.
Yes, absolutely. And with that, I wanted to get into some of these things related to what are some of the big changes that you think here, not just for the state, because obviously this is a state seat, but also here in the San Fernando Valley for this district. You think are some of the biggest changes that need to happen when it comes to our housing crisis that we have, that we're dealing with here in the San Fernando Valley. We've also seen the skyrocketing prices of both single family units as well as rental properties. So what do you think are some of the necessary steps at the state assembly level to create some changes and relief really for the folks here in the San Fernando Valley?
Yeah, I mean, people have really been going through it, and I think especially during the pandemic when folks were losing jobs and losing homes and losing, their ability to pay for rent or mortgages. I think that we need to do all of the things. We need to definitely build more housing, but we also need to make sure that we're investing in affordable housing. People can afford to live and work in their communities, right? And I think it's... I think that making sure that we have, programs and really invest in programs to help first-time home buyers. That's how I was able to buy a home. There's no way I could have been able to if I didn't have help with the down payment. And make sure that we have controls on to allow people to stay in their homes and not have skyrocketing rents that they can't afford. I think that there's an opportunity for us to really make sure that we reinvest in housing for our community. I think the public, the state has gotten out of the work of investing in housing to make sure that there's always housing available for our community that's affordable. And I think that, we can't rely just on the private market and private landlords to create affordable housing. We have to have a part in that and make sure that we're creating it ourselves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to stick here on the same topic of housing, but really talk about our unhoused neighbors and the really homeless emergency that we've dealt up and down the state, but specifically here in the San Fernando Valley as well. And what do you think are the types of both policy and real actions that need to happen from what's already occurred and is happening to really bring about a long-term solution to our unhoused neighbors, both here in the San Fernando Valley and really beyond here in the state of California?
I really believe in housing first as a solution, that we need to get people inside houses and inside homes where they feel safe before we can really, get people on their feet. And so I think that we need to be really investing more in housing, and make sure that we have that available for folks. Homelessness is actually one of the reasons that I really wanted to run, because I co-founded an organization that has the largest homeless outreach in the San Fernando Valley. We reach up to 500 unhoused folks every Sunday with our outreach teams. And one of the challenges that we found is that people want to get inside, but there's nowhere for them to go. And so, we've been doing this work for a couple years now, and we've been talking to people saying they're on a list somewhere and still not getting inside. And so I think we need to, I think, take this issue on as the crisis that it really is. We need to do rapid conversion of, hotels and motels that can be converted to housing, office buildings. I mean, there's a lot of people who are just not really going back into office buildings. There's all kinds of creative ways, shopping centers that have been vacated. I think creative ways that we can bring housing online more quickly. And I think we also need to make sure that we're reducing the barriers at the statewide level. One of the things that our organization did was fight for permanent supportive housing in our community where there was none. And one of the challenges when people came to the city developers and said, hey, we'll build this, they get a third of their funding from the city. They have to go find the rest of it somewhere else. And part of it is from the state, but there's only certain times you can apply. And if you don't apply in time, then you got to wait to the next year, and then it's more expensive. So there's actually, structural changes that we can make that would make a big difference and get housing online faster and cheaper and be more effective. But I think we need to focus on housing, really creating and increasing the stock for housing and getting people inside, because spending millions of dollars to shift people from one sidewalk to another is not solving the problem.
Yeah, absolutely there. And I wanted to touch upon healthcare, which is another, thing that we've seen, the essentialness of this when it comes to just, we've seen it over the pandemic. And this has been something that even prior to that, it's something that we know that here in California, many folks have at times, not have guaranteed health care. And so what would your plan look like? And what are some of your plans that you have working with other assembly folks up in the California Capitol to make sure that Californians do in fact have guaranteed health care?
This is something I'm very passionate about. For the last almost 13 years, I worked for California Nurses Association, the nurses union that's been fighting for Medicare for all, both in the state and nationally. And it's something that I've worked on personally for more than a decade. And after hearing so many stories from nurses about people not getting the care that they needed, delaying care, not getting the prescriptions they needed because they couldn't afford it, it just is heartbreaking and so frustrating to see how profit is driving our healthcare system. And countries all over the world are guaranteeing healthcare, paying half what we're paying, and having better health outcomes. And we can do that too if we just get the profit out of healthcare. So if we get, insurance companies that essentially are a middleman in our healthcare system out of healthcare, we're able to guarantee healthcare. And there's actually a report that just came out on Monday showing that we could save $500 billion over the next 10 years if we moved to a single payer unified financing system that really focuses on making sure all of our funding is going towards providing health care. And we could guarantee it to everyone. We'd save lives, we'd save money, and we'd have better health outcomes. So, I think after going through the pandemic, people really understand how our health is connected, that you can't be healthy if the people you work in the same room with also don't have access to health care. I can't be healthy. My daughter can't be healthy if the kid she sits next to at school doesn't have access to health care, right? Our health is connected, and I think people understand that in a different way after the pandemic than we ever have. to not do it when we can save money and guarantee healthcare to everyone is so frustrating. And so that's a big motivator for me to go to Sacramento and really fight to win that guarantee healthcare for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just in general, that's, a very essential part of, every Californian and really everyone that, healthcare. We don't choose to be sick. Now, I wanted to talk about just in general. California is, hovers around the fifth largest economy in the world, and but at the same time, we have seen the income gap rise, especially, of course, the pandemic has amplified that between, wealthy individuals and the working class, really. And so, what's your plan to try to minimize that income gap? Not just in California, but here in the San Fernando Valley, and specifically with looking at jobs and really a stable economy here in the San Fernando Valley.
So, I grew up in a working class family that really struggled. When I was young, my dad was a logger and my mom was a waitress. And we had many times where it was hard to figure out how to pay the bills. And it wasn't until my dad, later in life, he transitioned to be an electrician. And then when I was in college, got a union job. And that was the first time my family had health care. That was the first time he could be sick a day and not worry about missing pay. And so, that's one of the reasons that I dedicated my career to being in the labor movement, fighting for people for good jobs, for retirement security. My parents are retired now and not in poverty because of that union pension. And I really think that everyone deserves that. Everyone deserves a good job. Everyone deserves retirement security and health care. And that's, what I've been fighting for 20 years and will continue to fight for in Sacramento. I think one of the things is that we need to make sure that we're lifting up workers as our economy grows. And as, California is successful, we have a huge surplus. Companies have been making record profits through, some companies have been making record profits through the pandemic. And we need to make sure that workers are benefiting too. Everyone knows how things are getting more and more expensive. Housing is out of control. And, healthcare, my healthcare, for example, is almost the same as my mortgage, right? Every month. So people it's unsustainable for people. And so, focusing on raising wages for folks, making sure that they have protections and a voice on the job. And also, I think, making sure that we bring things more into balance, that for too long, big corporations and billionaires have been getting tax cuts and paying less and less and less into, our state. And individuals and small businesses and veterans and everyday folks are paying more and more and more, and we need to reverse that. We need to make sure that the wealthy, that billionaires, that corporations are paying their fair share, so that we can cut taxes for people who are struggling to make ends meet. Folks, veterans, small business owners, workers, everyday folks, seniors who are really struggling. We need to make sure that becomes into more of a balance, because it's gotten out of whack.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then, what about transitioning here to public education? And as far as we have our pre-K through 12 programs, as well as our public universities. And so, what are your particular plans when it comes to, and this is a two-part question. First, continuing to fund, pre-K through 12 education at levels that will continue to meet the needs of the communities, particularly here in the San Fernando Valley, of course, in AD 40. But also the other part of this question is, as a state assembly, future state assembly member, to tackle tuition hikes and things of that sort that sometimes makes it very unaffordable for folks that do want to go into higher education as well.
Right. I'm a strong believer in public education. I went to public school from kindergarten all the way through grad school. My daughter goes to our neighborhood public school where we live in Chatsworth. And I think that while California, I know, has been really working to increase funding in K through 12 schools, we're not there yet. We're still amongst the lowest, per pupil rate in the nation. And you can see it. I mean, I was on the leadership council at my daughter's school, where we have to go over the budget and make decisions about what we can pay for and what we can't. And we're trying to pay for extra teacher time to be able to, give extra tutoring and education to kids who really need it. And it's hard to scrape together those funds, and that shouldn't be the case. That we should be able to make sure that no matter what neighborhood you live in, your kids are getting excellent quality public education. And to do that, we need to make sure that we're really funding our schools in a way that reflects that. We shouldn't be fighting and asking for donations so that we have books in our school, right? And that's what we've had to do at my daughter's school. But and then I think on higher education, I'm really proud I'm the only candidate that's been endorsed by all of the teachers unions and organizations, and really, happy to have teachers supporting me. I think because, they believe that I really believe education is so critical for our community. I'm really happy that CSUN is in our district, because it's, Northridge, Chatritz, Granada Hills, and Porter Ranch. It's the north part of the San Fernando Valley, plus a little bit of San Fernando and Sylmar, and then the Santa Clarita Valley area. And so, having one of the CSUs in our district, I think, is really critical to make sure that we're really investing in this because I know so many folks in the valley go to CSUN, right? And it's really a community. It's a university for the community, and we need to make sure it's available for everyone in the community. I went to a CSU for undergrad myself, and I can't even believe what tuition costs now. There's no way I could have figured out how to afford that working my way through college in undergrad. And that's why, so many young people are saddled with just ridiculous student debt, can't, move out of their parents' house because they're paying so much for debt they can't afford housing. We have to reinvest, I think, as the public into public schools, because while we, call CSUs public schools, there's not as big an investment in from the public as we used to. And so I think we need to get back to that. I know we've done a lot of work to make community colleges free for the first couple of years for folks and increase accessibility there, which has been great. But we need to make sure that we're doing it in our four-year colleges as well.
Yes. Yeah, those are just another big piece. And of course, CSUN, part of our community here in the San Fernando Valley. And I want to move into the environment and looking at ways, because, we have faced all throughout the valley different, environmental issues that, have been, having an impact on the health, really, of our residents. But particularly the Aliso Canyon situation there with the methane, with the leaks that have happened there. And then just in general, what do you think the state needs to do in order to mitigate some of these issues that are happening here in our community, but just in general, as we are trying to tackle climate change that really has an impact on all of us, San Fernando Valley and beyond, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this, having the largest gas blowout in the nation right here in our backyard, people have really gone through it, in terms of their health and being impacted in profound ways still, right? And so there's a real concern, and we have to figure out, I think, how we transition Aliso out of being a producer in our community, how we ramp up and make sure that we can backfill and have the energy that we need so that lights also stay on. And also making sure that the workers are made whole through that process. It's not the workers' fault that the Aliso Canyon didn't do the maintenance and work in a way that kept folks safe. There's lots of workers who would have been happy to do that work if they wanted to pay them for it. So I know there's a bill right now that Henry Stern is carrying to phase that out, and I'm hoping that there's a resolution that we can find, even in this year around Aliso Canyon, because there's been lots of study and talk and promises for a long time, but there's not really movement happening. It's actually been increased in terms of the production there instead of decreased. And so, I'm really concerned about what the health impacts are. I was just up in Porter Ranch the other day, and just, driving through the community, I was smelling gas myself. And you can tell that, there continues to be an impact that people are getting sick, incidences of cancer and bloody noses, and, people had to move out of the community completely because of it. So, so I think we have to make sure that we're making sure that we're addressing public health concerns here in our own community and providing safe communities for folks. And then in terms of the environment, I think that, I have a 9-year-old right over here, and I want to make sure that she can breathe the air and drink the water in the future. And I'm really concerned about us not really addressing this like the crisis that it is. We're getting to the point where we're just going to have to deal with sea level rising because we haven't done enough already, and we're going to have to move roads and railways and water treatment plants, and there's so much infrastructure work that we're going to have to be doing because we haven't acted quickly enough. But I think there's still a lot that we can do to make sure that we're reducing greenhouse gases and carbon emissions, but also doing things. I think the water shortage is a huge crisis for us. I know there's new direction from the city and county around moving to just watering 1 day a week starting in June. Yes. And I was at someone's house in Northridge the other day who actually did a study on their own property that as little water and rain as we get in Southern California, they still got more rain than their family needs in a year. And so I think if we did more around water capture, about, investing in making sure that our water infrastructure is there in a way that we can capture more of this rainwater, both, through different ways of capturing and also in, natural aquifers and ducts, that we can actually address the water crisis in a much better way than right now, where we're sending all of the water out to the ocean that we could be capturing. So I think that really investing in that here locally, instead of trying to think that we can, we still need water from other areas, but I think there's a whole lot more we can do here locally that actually would address it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The just in general, climate change is happening all around us. We see it with the the warnings of the drought again, right? Mm-hmm. We've been here before, but nevertheless, here we are again. Yes. And so, lastly, here, Pilar, just you have just closing statements just to wrap up here. You have about 60 seconds for that.
Okay. I would just love for folks to check out my website. You can find out more about me at pilar4ca.com, the number 4. And I'm the only candidate in the race who's endorsed by the Democratic Party, nurses, teachers, California environmental voters. Just think that there's a real opportunity for us to flip the seat with redistricting. This district has gone from purple to bright blue. And so if, Democrats turn out and vote, we will be able to flip the seat. Right now we have a right-wing Trump Republican who's representing us in this district, and not representing us in, I think, the values of our district, where we need people who are fighting for workers and people who are trying to, survive, keep a roof over their head and food on the table. And that's what I've been doing for 20 years, and I plan to do in Sacramento.
Right on. So once again, we want to thank you, Pilar Schiavo, candidate for California Assembly District 40. And also we want to just thank our listening audience for tuning in once again here for Meet the Candidates 2022 series. And we will be back on air on Sundays, everybody, 10 a.m. and then back on Thursday, everybody, 7 p.m. Have a blessed and wonderful evening, everybody. Thank you for listening and tuning in here on Valley Views KROJ.
Thank you for listening to Valley Views on Radio Ole 101.5 FM KROJ. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Valley Views SFV. For all of our past episodes, check out our SoundCloud podcast at soundcloud.com/Valley Views.